Hey, John.
Hey, Eric. How you doing tonight?
Doing all right?
Welcome to Mostly Security,
We're back.
episode 41.
A little late this week.
Yeah, just just like a little. uh
That's all
yeah,
right.
I was driving Wednesday night and you were camping Thursday night.
Yeah. Life gets in the
So,
way sometimes, but it's all right.
it's all right. Here we go. There was a lot of stuff and I don't remember what days they showed up, but I guess we got an extra 2 days worth of topics here.
So, should we jump right in?
we we totally should.
Well, so I did want to follow up because one of the things that crossed my feed this week was a follow up to our John Deere tractor hacking right to repair stuff we talked
Oh
about
yes.
a long time ago, episode
Yep.
9.
Oh,
So, quite a while
wow.
ago. But I guess there is now a deal between the farmers lobby and the equipment dealers association, the people that represent John Deere. And the gist of it is, well, the title of the article should tell you everything you want to know. Farmer lobbying group sells out farmers, helps enshrine John Deere's tractor repair monopoly. So not a flattering headline, but they. So I don't understand this. You know, the farmer lobby basically agreed to, I'll air quote, concessions that the equipment dealers were already going to give them the access to service manuals, product guides, onboard diagnostics, and some other information, so that the farmer can help identify the problems with their machinery, but they still can't modify anything or make any other modifications that would kind of help farmers with their specific problems. They still have to, get that stuff from John Deere. So it's not
Ha-
truly a right to repair. It's
Having the
a
manual doesn't help if the part's still DRM'd.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. We don't need to talk a whole lot about it. You can go back and listen to episode 9 about
Yeah.
rambling about that, and look at the link in episode 9 to that original story. But there's a couple articles. There was one on Motherboard that had the original one, the tractor hacking that we linked to a while back, and there's also a Wired article on this as well that I saw. So still not a right
That's
to
terrible.
repair,
No.
and it just kind of makes things harder for, because now the group that's supposed to represent you agreed to terms that probably you didn't want to agree to.
Right. Thanks for selling me out. Yeah, that's terrible. Just one brief thing on there. So, like, I don't think that my neighbor realizes that that kind of stuff's going on because all his tractors are very, very old. Certainly not new, fancy computered ones. But when he's helped me out with a few things, I mean, he has modified his stuff to the nines. I
Right.
mean, he's got he's got special. I think what he does in the winter is he just takes his gear into the shop and welds stuff together and makes custom hooks and I'm very impressed and very jealous. And yeah, he'd be the exact type of person that would be hosed by this new world.
There's your brief follow up. We still don't have right to repair. We're just making it harder. Well, you want to flip a coin for who goes first on their topics, or?
Well, let's alternate. You do your first one.
Well, they're kind of in the same bucket, so we could split them. But I just kind of had two that caught my eye in the cryptocurrency space. I've kind of been avoiding that for a while, but over the last week, I've had several
You just can't.
conversations.
You can't resist.
No, I've
You
had
can't
several
resist.
conversations with some friends who had got into cryptocurrency, and I don't know if I've told the story here, but my pickup truck. A lot of my friends refer to it as the truck that cryptocurrency purchased. The truck that Bitcoin bought. Because long story short, I had been testing a bunch of stuff and had forgotten about some Bitcoin and Ethereum that I had, and then when it rocketed up, I sold it all and bought myself a used but a nice pickup truck and did some things to it. Put some nicer tires. It doesn't matter. Anyway, so I've had some conversations with a number of friends who I've had. Anyways, so the first article is about. So yeah, I can't get away from cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, but in 10 years, you're going to look back and you go, wow, I paid $10 million worth of Bitcoin for that.
For a pickup truck.
For a pickup truck.
That's right. That's right. It'll bite me at some point, but I'm not going to hold my breath.
That's okay.
So there was an exchange in Japan that was hacked to the tune of $60 million.
Ooh.
So how this hack occurred, well, actually, they don't go into details about the hack for various reasons, but what had happened is cryptocurrency exchanges keep what they call hot wallets. And hot wallets are cryptocurrency addresses that are used heavily, that the exchange keeps funds for immediate transactions, because transactions on various networks can take large amounts of time, and when people start trading things, they expect immediacy. And so these cryptocurrency to cryptocurrency or cryptocurrency to fiat, your dollars, euros, yen, this was actually in Japan. Most of the large amounts of stuff, and what your cryptocurrency experts will tell you to do, is to keep your funds in a cold wallet or a completely offline, hardware wallet, things like that. But for an exchange to work efficiently, it needs to keep money in what is referred to as a hot wallet. So this happened. They lost $60 million. This is obviously yet another case where, some exchange got hacked. It seems there's a hack every day. We don't hear about banks being robbed even close to the frequency we hear about exchanges being robbed, or someone. I don't know what a good corollary or a good way to do apples to apples comparison here, but.
Well, it was a huge deal when the Swift bank in was it Malaysia was hacked.
Yes.
A couple again. Sorry, I wasn't prepared to talk about this, but so was it a couple years ago, and they got away with tens of millions of dollars, I believe, but they almost got away with a lot more. But yeah, that was a really big deal. Yeah. And whereas I would say there's probably been a half a dozen, $10 million plus, quote unquote heists in the last year. I don't know that I could enumerate them off the top of my head, but it sure seems like I've seen this headline or a similar headline a lot.
Yeah. So I guess kind of my point on this one is this does seem to be a bit of a regular occurrence. So if you are holding your cryptocurrency in an exchange, maybe kind of poke around and see what their rules are, because it's not really regulated. So there's no legal requirement to try to make you whole if the exchange happens to lose your money.
Oh, meaning there's no equivalent of the FDIC in the US.
Right. Or whatever it is, it might be a good business requirement that they will try to, make you whole, which is actually what this cryptocurrency exchange is doing. They're trying to get a loan so that they can pay back, the people who use their exchange, the money that they had lost. So a government possibly might step in to help you out if you have your money in exchange, but it's not guaranteed. So read the fine print. If you're digging into cryptocurrencies, pay attention to the fine print of the exchange. And then kind of following on to this one, there was an article about a Bitcoin bug. So not only can your cryptocurrency exchange get
read this one
hacked or whatever, it's possible that, the software itself that's running your blockchain could have a bug, and apparently there was a bug in Bitcoin vulnerability that was reported that could have been used to shut down a chunk of the Bitcoin network. And that sounds bad. But apparently, the Bitcoin Core developers kept a second part of the bug secret until they could get enough of the Bitcoin network running code that fixed it, where an attacker could actually have used this exploit, this bug, to manufacture fake Bitcoin. And no one would know the difference until, I don't even know what the until is, but it could go above that hard cap, 21 million hard cap, so essentially inflating the supply and devaluing everybody's Bitcoin.
Right.
And what I think people who get involved in cryptocurrencies need to understand is Bitcoin is the granddaddy of cryptocurrencies, right? It's been around for 10 years, 10 years now.
Yeah, yeah.
And a bug now was just discovered where for the last 10 years, somebody might have been able to create fake Bitcoin and no one would know.
Right.
So, again, all code has bugs. Be careful what you're investing in and what you're doing, because it may all come crashing down.
Show me some code that doesn't have any bugs, and I will show you code that is either very, 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 very short, or
Hello world.
very, 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 very expensive.
Yeah.
I seem to remember, hearing about the number of defects per line of code for like the space shuttle software. And, it was an astonishing, couple orders of magnitude lower than the average, project in the world. But it also cost even more magnitudes of dollars,
Right.
To make. It's not linear.
Well, anyways, those were the two articles that there were a ton of things this last week, but I guess just bubbling to the surface for me this week was more cryptocurrency stuff. So
cryptocurrencies, yeah, you can't escape it. It's got gravity for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I actually had two topics myself. The first of which is a blog post from Jeff Atwood at Coding Horror. Let's see. So this is about his tagline is "There's no longer any such thing as computer security."
Clickbait title.
Totally clickbait title. Totally. Yeah. Well done, Jeff. But jumping to the end, it's because it's just security, not just computer security.
Right.
Just because it's permeating aspects of our life. So if you don't know Jeff Atwood, you're listening to this, you should totally go read his site. He's been a blogger for a very, very, very long time, but he's probably most well known at this point, for being one of the two founders for Stack Overflow. Which has made a big difference in the world, especially in the world of developers.
Yep.
Yeah, and so Joel Spolsky was the other one. So Jeff Atwood, Joel Spolsky, and it was this was kind of fun because this was, 2007, 2008, something like that was when they were working on that, and I had followed both of them as bloggers for a while, at least, especially Joel, because he wrote Joel on Software in the early 2000s. A couple of books of which were made of his posts. Although for the last, I don't know, 5 years or so, he hasn't posted much at all, other than a couple of marketing things for his company. Anyway, so while Jeff and Joel did Stack Overflow, they did a podcast. Like a weekly podcast talking about what they would built and some of the decisions they were making, and I listened to those on my drive at the time, and I just thought they were great. And then Jeff left Stack Overflow a couple years ago, I think mainly because he had a kid or a second kid, but he founded Discourse, which is now a message board system that is doing really well at the moment. So it's kind of fun to watch somebody like that when you've kind of been at least observer for so many years.
Yep.
Anyway, this article goes into quite a bit of detail about computer security, but really it comes down to stuff that we've talked about on this podcast a number of times, and I thought that you would very much enjoy around password management.
I
But
love them. I
yeah,
love them
but
all.
yeah, exactly. So, but actually, this is great because he pulls up one of the phishing campaigns that was used to hack into the DNC,
Right.
which is ironic because it was also just mentioned in a book I finished reading earlier this week. But the thing that I thought was just a killer on here is that the person being phished was smart about it. He saw the email, sent it to IT and said, "Is this legit?" And the guy in IT sent him back an email that said, "This is a legitimate email. This person needs to change his password immediately and ensure two-factor authentication is turned on in his account." So, but it says legitimate, and then in the in the defense after the case, the IT person's like, "I meant to say illegitimate. That's why I was telling him he needs to change his password immediately and ensure two-factor authentication is turned on. I meant to say illegitimate." So, like, the little IL at the beginning was kind of a critical portion of that
Yeah.
sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
because
don't know.
then that. Well, yeah, exactly. Well, that's in the comments if you go and read down later. The
Yeah.
guy's like, there are people saying, "Oh, he's just saying that because he's trying to um, duck responsibility." But I mean,
Yeah.
in reality, for me, who knows? I don't think you could really know. But the way he says John needs to change his password immediately and ensure two-factor authentication is turned on onto his account. He can go to this link, blah blah blah, to do both. It is imperative it's done ASAP. He didn't tell him to, he gave him the correct link to go to, as opposed to the bit.ly link that was
Right.
in the
That was the
phishing
fished
email.
one. Yeah.
Right, right. Oh, just brutal. Brutal. But anyway, so this goes on and talks about a little bit more about what fishing and spear fishing and stuff like that. But then there are a couple of great links in here for security precautions. But at the end of the day, Jeff is coming down to, like, what are the three things you should do? And we've talked about these a lot over the course of the last number of episodes. Number one, enable two-factor authentication through an app, not SMS, everywhere you can. So,
But let me add a little asterisk to the end of that one.
okay.
If SMS is the only option for two-factor, then do it.
It's still better to do that.
It's better to do SMS than not to have two-factor. I ran across
Yes.
this actually earlier today with an account. SMS. I went to enable two-factor, and the only option they had was SMS or email. Their second factors will send you a code via SMS or email. So, sorry, I was reading the rest. I'm like, not SMS is good, but if that's your only option, still use it.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I would concur with that asterisk. I love the fact that he's saying there, though, this is also a company policy at Discourse. Here, you two-factor everything all the time. No other option exists.
Yep.
His second recommendation is make all your passwords 11 characters or more. But and there's a link to another post if you want to go read more. But he says anything under 11 characters is basically the same as having no password at all these days. Basically, because it's just so easy to crack passwords.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I got a little asterisk with that one too.
Oh, look at you, Mr. Asterisk man. Okay, asterisk me.
If less than 11 is too easy to crack today, then 11 and less tomorrow or the next day or the next. Make them as long as you can. But
Yes.
now I'm starting to bite into your number third topic there. But make them as
true.
long as you can. It irritates me when some site try to do a password and it's, that you can only have 15 characters max. I'm grumpy.
Right.
So, sorry.
Right.
11 plus is great, I suppose, but I would rather have the Asterisk be make them as long as you possibly can.
Well,
Sorry.
I'll just say I shared an account with a guy this maybe a week ago, and it's just a test account, but I've so no big deal. Using it for demo purposes actually, but when I had set it up, I was using 1Password, and so when I gave him the password, it was this, I think, 40 or 60 character like gobbledygook. I'm like,
well done, John.
You're cutting and pasting this bad boy. You're not. Uh, yep. I won't say I'm clean on the password front, but I'm definitely cleaner. All right, so that gets to his number third. So actually, he actually says, I personally recommend at least 14 characters, maybe even 16, but this won't be a problem for you because number 3 is use a password manager. And
Yay.
yeah, that's the
Hand clap.
real thing. Yeah.
Golf clap.
Golf clap. But then the funny thing, and the reason why it made me smile, it made me think of you on this, is because he was like, bonus rule, get a U2F key or a YubiKey.
Yes.
So
well
which
done.
Which I still don't have,
That should be number 4. It shouldn't be a bonus. It should be number 4.
Yeah, well, it's maybe in another 6 months there'll be enough. They'll be common.
We've talked about before the WebAuthn and some of the other things coming that support it. So I'm looking forward to being on the leading edge of that party bus.
Yeah, that, and maybe that'll get me over the hump there too. Okay, so this was my first. I thought this was a great topic. I've been following Jeff for so long now, stalking, I guess. What else do you do?
Anytime you want to talk about passwords, I'm on board.
That's right. Yep. So anyway, go check it out. Great article. Okay, so this was my best practices section of my topic. My second is my scary threat thing, kind of.
I did not read this one, so
yeah. So this is a privacy breach. So evidently, I think it was a Canadian company, NCIX. Sorry, I have to scroll up to the top of this. Great technology. Selection and service. So the thing is that what happens to a business, what happens to the assets of a business when a business goes bankrupt? Who knows? But
right.
The main thing is they're going to be disposed of for as much money as they can. And depending on how abrupt the end is, and depending on the practices of the company as they're doing business, the end can be very scary when it comes to data. So this article here is a article from just in the last week of a guy in Canada, I believe, Vancouver, BC, who answered an ad on Craigslist or eBay for guys selling servers, some hardware, and went to check it out and actually kind of did a little bit of undercover work essentially here, of checking out whether or not the servers had been wiped. And when he basically told the guy, well, I'm more interested in the data than the servers. And then this goes into a whole, big, escapade or details of what he was able to do and what he was able to, find. So for
basically
example,
he bought computers at auction from some company that went out of business and just started trolling the hard drives for data.
Yes, except that he didn't actually wind up buying them. He wound up getting able to look at them in the in sort of acting as a buyer, and
Ah,
was able to go to the warehouse with the guy with where the seller was, or a warehouse,
right.
and was able to basically look at the data but couldn't copy it off, and was able to look at what what data would be available if he did this transaction. And in fact, uh, when at the end of the day, when he said, well, I'm not really so much interested in the servers as the data, instead of trying to sell a server for like $1,500, the guy was like, oh, well, I can sell you the data for $15,000, where you basically can just rent the room for a day, bring your own hard drives in, and copy everything off that you wanted to.
Oh my
But
goodness.
he had actually, there's a couple of other like details in here that I'll try and pull out in a second. But one of the things at the end of the article is like he wasn't only selling the data to this person, right? The data had already been sold to at least one other person, and there were 5 other buyers, all of whom were basically just coming for copies of the data.
Wow.
Uh, because, in this particular thing, there were 500 desktops, none of which, or at least apparently none of the ones that this guy looked at, and he looked at least a couple of them, had been encrypted, so they didn't use full disk encryption, and they weren't wiped before they were repossessed. So I don't
Right.
know exactly how the repossession happened, but there was a comment in this article about the fact that there was back rent owed to the warehouse owner, and so this guy was basically trying to get money back for but by essentially very criminal means. So in this particular case, he was able to mount an image file of a system that belonged to the founder himself. So a guy named Steve Wu evidently founded this, and on there he found 13 years worth of data, financial documents, employment letters containing SIN numbers, which I assume that's the Canadian Social Security number. Data from Mr. Wu's home computer, which contained lots of personal documents and pictures of family and other more compromising stuff. And then also, he was able to find databases, a number of which have, very interesting sounding names like payroll data, POS reports, so presumably point of sale reports, orders SQL, and then in one of the databases, the NCIWWW, which NCI World Wide Web, I don't know, contained 1,000 records from affiliates listing plain text passwords, addresses, names, and some financial data. So plain text passwords, I mean, even in this day and age.
Yeah, so that one is if you had done any business with this company as an affiliate, I guess
Exactly.
as an affiliate, your passwords and information is now leaked.
Yep. Exactly. And I mean, oh, passwords themselves should never be stored, ever. As a
Right.
security person, we know that. Uh, but that's if you're just a small business trying to figure out somebody, just get somebody off the street who says, "Oh yeah, I can write that software for you," and they know how to do, in this particular thing, maybe an access database or something like that. Or it says a SQL server, it says SQL databases, but uh, they're not security people, especially not 15 years ago. It's terrible how often passwords, like plain text passwords, are stored for the purposes of authentication.
Right.
But the other thing it contained was full credit card payment details in plain text for 258,000 users. So, quarter of a million users with their uh,
Credit
credit card
cards are now
details.
public,
Yep.
or now being traded on
Yep.
the
Yep.
dark web somewhere.
Yeah, and then it says there were 13 terabytes of SQL databases and various Zen server backup files.
Mm.
So, and the quote from here is that I cringed at the thought of that data being sold once, as it was danger enough. But then, during further conversation, Jeff, who was the seller, mentioned at least 5 other buyers. So, just frightening.
Right.
So, at the end of the day, the thing is that when you give your data away to a company, it's theirs to
Lose.
hold and theirs to lose, right? Which is why things like the GDPR are interesting in terms of just in general trying to hold companies responsible for what they do with their data. But in general, this is something where we could use a little bit more regulation, to be honest, in my perspective.
I think you written a comment about, just this could have been avoided by using full disk encryption and destroying the hard drives.
Uh, full disk encryption is a good software solution. All right, shall we do something fun?
Yes. And it was good to jump
You have something really fun.
past the something fun. So the reason why we're not recording till Saturday is also because Thursday night I drove up and stayed the night to a trailhead for Mount St. Helens. I've been hiking Mount St. Helens with a buddy of mine for 10 ish. It's either 9 or 11. I don't know. It's somewhere in the 10 year mark. I tried going back through photos and some are, anyways, doesn't matter. And it is just a fun hike. So I stayed the night Thursday night and woke up early Friday morning and got hiking because it's a pretty strenuous hike. It's not technical, really. But you go through trees for a couple miles, then you have to go over boulders and lava rock and all from the results of the explosion. And then at the last bit, you're kind of hiking through the ash, which is thin. It had rained a couple days before and snowed a couple days before, so it had tamped down the dust and the ash, so that was nice. That's always a nice bonus when hiking. So And over the years, we've had more and more friends of mine who decided they wanted to join. This year we had 12 of us actually hike. Which, yeah, that's been the largest group, but they only allow 100 permits per day. So you have to actually have to buy a permit to hike to the top of the mountain. So there's not a lot of people on the trails either, which is really nice.
Wow. How long did it take you guys to get up there?
Yeah, it takes let's see, we started at 7 and we got to the top by a little after 11:30-ish, I think, I want to say. So it's a 4.5 hours up and then 3-ish down, because down's a lot faster than up. Because it's just over 8 miles round trip.
That is a long hike for somebody that's not like hiking
not a
on a regular basis.
I know. This is my once a year thing, which I kind of like doing because it pushes me to the edge. And every year after I'm done, I come down and I say, okay, I'm not doing this again next year. And then February rolls around when they sell the passes, and I email out a bunch of friends and say, anybody want to go? And I buy passes. And anyways, this year I finally wrote finally, it's the wrong word. So this year at the request of a couple of the guys I hiked with, wrote a blog post with a bunch of pictures in it so they could kind of get views. So I have, for the last 10 years or 9 or 10 years, whatever it's been, pictures of different parts of the hike and being on top. And so sometimes it's really snowy, sometimes it's really dry. So
that's great. I actually noticed that you had added that to the notes here, so I actually checked that out right before we started recording. There's some great pictures there.
Yeah, so lots of pictures, and it's fun. So that's my annual thing where people go, "Ooh, he's a hiker. He's a Pacific Northwest guy." No, I only do this one thing, and that's pretty much it.
That's great.
But I enjoy it.
Okay, well, hey, my something fun. I had two things, but they're relatively small, so I'll just mention them quick. And they're just more cool things than, I don't know. A lot of things I choose are things that I've done or things that I'm doing, but in this case, I saw two things come along the my feeds, but that weren't really topics per se, but I thought were cool, so I decided they would be my something fun. So the first of which is that if you are working on an open source project, you can get free continuous integration pipelines on Azure. So they do Linux, Mac, and Windows, and you can run 10 pipelines at the same time. So this is for things that, anytime source gets checked in, it'll kick off, do a build and test, and then publish the results. I thought that was really cool. So Azure's kicking it at the moment. I think I saw some data. I'm not going to remember it, and I don't have a link for it, but where I think they had something like 90% growth this past year. And AWS had, respectable growth, like, something on the order of 40%.
Yep.
But Azure's, they're the solid second. I think a year ago I would have put Google and Azure maybe on the same level, but I think at this point Azure is a pretty clear
it's
runner-up.
not your father's Microsoft.
Okay, and then my second small thing, and I couldn't pick between these. I just thought that they both needed to go out. At least if you're in the U.S., Brian Krebs had an article that and I didn't realize this had happened, but credit freezes are now free, so no more having to pay $10 to freeze your credit. So if you're in the United States and you're not planning on buying a car or a house or need credit for the next week, you should go freeze your credit.
Well, go freeze your credit anyways, because I actually, after the Equifax hack, I went and froze my credit and paid the $10. And then about a month ago, I was doing something that required me to get my credit, and I asked them, well, which credit bureau do you use? Because I need to unfreeze it. And they're like, oh, you're one of those guys. I'm like, yes, I am. Which one? And they're like, well, we actually hit all three. And I said, okay, so I had to go through the process of doing all three. And it, as annoying as it was pretty painless. So I'll tell you, I've gone through the credit freeze process, which was annoying. But hopefully, I'll have to check it out again. It's a little more streamlined online. And unfreezing was a lot easier because it's probably in the credit company's interest to make it unfreezing easy and freezing hard. So I actually was able to do both halves and then refreeze it. So, and I did all four. I think Krebs mentions the fourth one. It's Innovis, I think. Besides the big three in the U.S.
Oh,
but yes,
I couldn't have named the fourth. Okay. Well, anyway, just. No dwelling needed, but there you go. Two cool things this week: free continuous integration pipelines on Azure for open source, and free credit freezes. Both of those I thought were cool. All right,
awesome.
Should we call it a show?
Yeah, not bad for doing a little late.
That's
this
right.
week.
All right, now we just have to hopefully something happens before next Wednesday.
That's right. Well, yeah. I don't think we have to hope.
That's right. There's always something, I tell you what.
There's
All right.
always something.
Have a good night, Eric.
Night, John.